Last question I want to ask you about Apple. Since Apple stock price is at all-time high, the Apple Watch is coming out this year. They also wanted to get into the car industry. I read an article on Barron's. They predict the Apple stock price will rise to 160 over the next year. What do you think about that?
I like Apple. I use Apple. I mean, I've always been a PC, Excel-oriented individual with all the tables and charts that we do. But when it comes to the smartphones and you know, they've got a real handle on that, and I think it's a great company. I personally like to invest in Apple by going into the NASDAQ 100, the QQQs. That way I get a little bit of diversity with the other tech market. So we're still long that. I think it's got some upside there. Getting to 160 exactly or not is not a call I make on that particular stock, but we're in it through the QQQs. I think there's more upside there. But again, as I said before, we're starting to get a little bit cautious here. I'm not going to go chasing that right now. I don't love chasing stocks that are way up. I don't chase momentum that way. I look for something that's before it pops a little bit, is more undervalued, a little bit under the radar. But Apple's a great stock. I wouldn't sell it. I'm just not sure I'd be dumping a whole lot of new money into it right now.
Well, next question I want to ask you about Apple. So since Apple's market cap has hit a record high, the Apple Watch is coming out this year, and they wanted to get into the car industry. So what do you think about Apple's price? Will it rise again?
Well, we've had, and especially Liz, she's been a big Apple trader. She's had bullish positions on an Apple for quite some time. Right now we actually have a bearish position.
And that's what I was going to say is, I typically don't take direction. I've been trading the volatilities around Apple. I've made money on the bullish side, and I actually flip the cards over, and I'm bearish on Apple right now.
But if you know how to use options properly, you can put on a trade so that even if it goes up a little bit, you can put on a bearish trade where even if it goes up a little bit more, you can still make money. It's just knowing how to use the options properly.
So even if I'm wrong directionally, and that's kind of how we reside, even if I am wrong directionally, I can still make money with my strategy.
And the next question I want to ask you about the Apple stock price. So Apple has hit its all-time record high. Do you think it will, and the Bollinger Band, Apple stock price hit the Bollinger Band, then it went down. Do you think it will come back again? Or is it the perfect setup to sell Apple?
I don't think Apple's done yet. So I think we could have a short-term top here and a pullback. But Apple is what we call a fad stock. It's a stock in which many people are interested in. I think there's a tremendous amount of demand for it. And we don't see the classic signs that we would see of a long-term top for a stock in Apple yet.
Right. Okay, last question is about Apple. Apple's market cap is hitting a record high, $760 billion. And the Apple Watch is coming out this year, and Apple wanted to get into the car industry. So Barron's predicts the Apple's stock price will rise to $160 over the next year. What is your opinion towards that?
Well, they're probably right. I don't know. I'm not a great stock predictor, but as far as an option strategy to take care of that, I mean, I guess the simplest thing would be, buy calls 1 year out, out of the money, and don't over risk. I mean, don't risk your entire net worth in it, but definitely be worth buying some out of the money calls and holding them for a year.
Then what about Apple? Apple's market cap has hit an all-time high, and the Apple Watch is coming out this year. Apple also wants to get into the car industry. Do you think their price will go higher?
I think Apple's probably one of the classic sales of all time up here. I think it's extremely overpriced relative to, where it's been. It's hard to maintain. I know everybody's bullish on Apple and how wonderful it looks and things like that, but it's going to have a hard time maintaining price up here.
Okay. Well, I saw an article on Barron's. They predict the Apple stock price will go up to 160 over the next year. So
that means absolutely nothing to me. Actually, it means less than nothing to me. I remember that's, I think somebody should do a study on the history of Barron's stock picking.
Okay.
Apple is making many moves recently. It's going to produce cars and watches. What do you think about it?
I believe that Apple will continue to be a leader in our market. Obviously, it is one of the world's biggest companies by market capitalization. They have great and innovative ideas. I think that it will, like every other company, have its ups and downs, especially if we raise interest rates, if our Federal Reserve in the U.S. markets if our interest rates get raised, I think that's going to have an impact, if only temporarily, on every stock, including Apple.
Last question I want to ask about Apple. Since Apple's stock price has hit an all-time high, so what kind of option strategies can investors use to hedge their risk in trading Apple stock?
Okay, that's a good one. So basically, if you like the stock but you're worried that maybe it's too high, then what you can do is what we call a caller, which means you sell a call, but then you use the proceeds of that call to go buy a put. So that way you can actually, if you think it's going to basically not go up too much more, but you think it could go down a bunch or it might just flatten out for a while, then you basically can do that for relatively little to no cost. So the collar strategy is a wonderful one to look into for people who have good gains, don't want to, for tax reasons or otherwise, don't want to sell just yet, and they can still maintain their stock and then protect it and hedge it within a defined range for very little to no cost.